We kick things off in Texas, where members of the Lufkin PD are handcuffing 33-year-old Tasha Faye Sponsler. After being put in the police cruiser, the handcuffed Sponsler manages to undo her seatbelt. And then, despite officers being near the vehicle, she pulls off a Vegas-level magic trick by, ta-da, wiggling her one hand out of her handcuffs. Sponsler remains calm, looks around, and makes sure the officers are adequately distracted before following up her previous trick with an even crazier encore.
God dang, come on, hey, God.
In the midst of Texas, where everyone's attention is focused on Tasha Faye Sponsler and the daring journey that she was on, the officers of the Lufkin Police Department have just finished properly handcuffing Sponsler and are about to load her into their cruiser when an unexpected event takes place. Sponsler first removes her seatbelt, which displays a remarkable level of dexterity, and then she removes her hand from the handcuffs. She makes sure to check around carefully to make sure the police are sufficiently distracted, yet despite this, she has nerves of steel. Then Sponsler plans an encore that is utterly mind-boggling to everyone and would be well at home in Las Vegas. This promises to be an exhilarating journey into a world of bold pranks and unexpected turns, and Tasha Faye Sponsler is set to star as the lead character in this episode.
Hell.
As the stolen cruiser shoots back onto the main road, it narrowly misses a row of spike strips. But eventually, the chase comes to a dramatic end. After rejecting a plea deal that would have given her 16 years in prison, Sponsler got the jury trial she wanted. Unfortunately for her, after being found guilty, she was sentenced to a staggering 45 years in prison.
As the stolen cruiser drove back to the main road and narrowly skirted a series of spike strips, the officers who were after it launched into a frenzy of pursuit. The amount of stress that was being endured became increasingly severe with each passing second. The desperate circumstances that the fugitive was in caused her to make a choice that would have severe repercussions. Sponsler was offered a plea bargain that would have reduced the maximum term she faced to 16 years, but she chose to take her chances in a jury trial instead. Her run of good luck had finally come to an end. The judge came to the conclusion that she was responsible for the crime and then stunned everyone in the courtroom by imposing a sentence of 45 years in jail on her. After the spectacular chase was over, Sponsler was left with the sobering awareness that she still had a long and challenging road ahead.
It's 1:15 p.m. at the Ready Mart in Spruce Grove, Edmonton. And this man, 28-year-old Richard Parasow, has just been caught trying to buy a can of soda with a stolen credit card. Police have been called in to arrest the man, but he's not going quietly. After throwing his girlfriend, Brittany Burke, more on her in a minute, onto the officer and tangling with the store's owner, creating an impromptu game of Twister, he breaks free. He takes off towards the back of the store with no shirt and no plan. As the officer takes aim with a taser, Parasow grabs a weapon of his own, a bag of salty snacks. Realizing he's outgunned, he drops to the ground. The officer shows restraint as Brittany Burke approaches near the Pringles. After telling her to stay back, the officer calls for backup, and that's when Parasow makes at least his fourth terrible decision of the day and is pumped full of 50,000 volts. Meanwhile, with the entrance blocked by the owner, Brittany, the real star of this video, makes her move to the back of the store. Instead of trying the back door, she takes another, more daring route. After blowing absolutely any chance of anonymity right here, she crawls past the dusty Christmas decorations and heads for the ductwork and potential freedom. A seemingly good plan until it isn't. After using aisle 5 to break her fall, Burke miraculously walks away and finally decides to surrender. Backup arrives, and both Parasau and Burke are arrested. As the store's owners pick up the pieces of their ceiling, Parasau and Burke picked up 11 charges, including using a stolen credit card, resisting arrest, and assaulting a police officer.
Disarray broke out in the Spruce Grove, Edmonton location of Ready Mart around 1:15. The 28-year-old Richard Parasau was apprehended while attempting to use a fraudulent credit card to buy a Coke. When the police arrived to arrest him, he caused a commotion by throwing his girlfriend, Brittany Burke, who would turn out to be quite the character in her own right, at one of them. The shopkeeper got caught up in the confusion, and before long they had an impromptu game of Twister on their hands. Parasau stripped off his shirt and made a hasty retreat to the store's rear. Parasau dodged the officer's taser by brandishing a bag of salty snacks. Being aware of his inferiority, he wisely lowered himself to the earth. Brittany Burke, meantime, made her move, silently slinking past dusty Christmas ornaments and into the ducts. In aisle 5, her audacious plot to flee backfired as she smashed through a ceiling tile. When reinforcements arrived, Parasau and Burke were arrested, and the store's owners were left to pick up the pieces. Parasau was hit with a whopping 11 offenses, including theft, assault, and resisting arrest.
Taking a more straightforward approach is the alleged suspect caught on camera in this next video released by the NYPD. As she approaches the cashier at this Burger King in the Grand Concourse section of the Bronx, there seems to be nothing out of the ordinary about this customer until she dives across the counter and takes a stab at the open cash register, swiping $250. Going above and beyond the call of duty, additional staff step in. But they don't have the suspect for long. She slides across the counter and makes her way towards the door with no sense of urgency, and with good reason, as she's yet to be caught. But for the staff of this Burger King, they get a moral victory for making sure the suspect walked out both hungry and empty-handed.
When the officer from the New York Police Department approached the cashier at the Burger King located in the Grand Concourse neighborhood of the Bronx, it seemed as though the woman was merely another customer. In a sudden and unanticipated change of events, however, she leapt over the counter and made a vain attempt to get her hands on the open cash register. She accomplished an extraordinary feat for a would-be thief by stealing $250 in a single fast action, going above and beyond the call of duty for a thief. The situation was swiftly brought under control by additional members of the crew, but their efforts to capture the culprit were unsuccessful. She slid back over the counter with astonishing dexterity and then casually sauntered towards the exit, making no indication that she was in any rush. It was probably a little success for the personnel at Burger King when they made sure the suspect left the restaurant hungry and without any of his belongings.
Finally, we're in Lamar, Arkansas, where police are in pursuit of a truck and trailer reportedly stolen by the owner just 10 minutes earlier. An even bigger problem, the vehicle's owner says there's several loaded guns inside the truck. With little progress being made 10 miles into the chase, a police unit is stationed near an on-ramp, about to deploy a spike strip, hopefully disabling the vehicle.
Spike support, they got him. The boy lives in an icebox out the back.
The spike strips are successful, sending a mini freezer flying, but the truck keeps going.
Looks like we got a front driver's side tire. 68 miles an hour. Westbound.
Then, 2 miles further down the highway,
He's on the rim. He's about to come to a stop here soon. Just before the Franklin. We're pulling over on the shoulder just before Franklin County.
Before the officer can get his car in park, the truck door swings open. It's the moment of truth for this pursuing officer. As the driver exits, they could be concealing a weapon, or not concealing anything at all.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
The driver who just led police on a dangerous high-speed chase is, in fact, a woman wearing nothing but a pair of sunglasses and who knows what on her head.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Police tackle the woman and place her under arrest. The suspect, later identified as 48-year-old Deidre Lewis, was charged with aggravated assault, theft, reckless driving, and fleeing.
Whew. They had followed the track of the stolen truck and the trailer all the way to Lamar, Arkansas. 10 minutes after reporting the theft, the owner revealed a more pressing concern. He said that the stolen vehicle contained loaded firearms. Tensions were high when a police team waited at an on-ramp and got ready to use a spike strip after a 10-mile chase. Success! A small freezer was launched into the air by the strip, but the truck kept on. However, at 68 miles in, the front driver's side tire gave out, and by the time they got another 2 miles down the road, the truck was on its last legs. The cop had his opportunity to act. The truck pulled over to the side of the road in Franklin County, and as the pursuing police officer approached, the door suddenly opened. When the driver finally emerged, everyone knew for sure if she was hiding a weapon or not. The fast command came, "Get on the ground, get down here." It was then revealed that the woman behind the wheel during the high-stakes police pursuit had been wearing only sunglasses and a peculiar headpiece. Officers swarmed in and arrested the culprit, a 48-year-old woman named Deidre Lewis, who was charged with aggravated assault, theft, reckless driving, and eluding police.
Why you giving me the face? What? What's your problem? What? Why you giving me the finger?
The video shows an officer driving a car, but suddenly he stops because of a teen who showed him the middle finger. So what did he do actually? Why did the boy take part in such behavior? Stay tuned to the video till the end to find out.
Why you giving me the finger? What's your problem?
Am I free to go?
No.
What, do you have a problem?
No.
Do you have a problem?
No.
Well, I have a problem, then I can leave.
Why you giving me the finger when you're walking?
The officer gets out of the car and asks the boy exactly what is his problem. Why are you giving me the middle finger? But the boy does not react directly and instead asks whether he is free to leave. The officer refuses to let him go and questions him again about why he gave him the middle finger.
Huh? Come here. Get over here.
What?
Get over here.
Is that a lawful order?
Yeah.
For what reason?
Because you're giving me the finger.
The cop asks the boy again to come over. The boy asks him if it is a legal order, but he doesn't understand why. The officer then tells him that it is against the law for him to give the officer the finger, but the boy says that's not true. According to the law, Mr. Walker's use of the middle finger was protected speech, and he could not be arrested for making the gesture at corporal pitch.
Whatever.
You.
What?
You heard me. What,
Come here.
I'm afraid of you?
Come here. Get over here.
What?
Get over here.
The officer lets him go, but as the boy walks off, he again says something disrespectful to the officer.
Get over here.
I'm not doing anything illegal.
Yeah, you are. You just cursed me off.
That's not a crime.
Yes, it is.
The cop tells the boy to come over here when he calls him back. The boy then says, I'm not breaking the law, but the cop says it is against the law because he cursed at him. The argument between the boy and the officer carries on until this happened.
Help!
No help.
Help! Help!
Yo.
Help!
When Mr. Walker begins screaming for help, the officer grabs him and puts his hands behind his back. Corporal Pritch turns his body-worn camera off and doesn't turn it back on until backup comes. It is obvious that the officer's actions, including turning off the body-worn camera, violated both state law and the Attorney General's policy.
It is legal. He's allowed to
Who is
detain
this
you
kid?
until he performs his
So what am I
investigation.
doing, though? What am I doing that made him detain me? What legal
Every
right?
time I rode by him twice, he shot me the finger. So I turned around and said, well, you're
Is that a crime?
problem?
The other officer arrives and says it's legal to detain the boy, but the boy is still arguing that it is not a crime. So the first officer explains that he has shown the middle finger twice.
He's looking at you because he's like, what the fuck you want me to do? Because it's not a crime. I know my rights.
Who are you?
I don't have to say any of that.
You do if you're being detained.
For what reason?
What?
The boy then asked the officers who have just come, "What's the legal reason I'm being held? Where is this coming from, and what's the legal reason?" Michael James LaMontagne arrives on the scene and informs the boy is required to identify himself because he is being detained, despite the fact that he cannot provide a legal justification for the detention. However, New Jersey lacks a stop and identify statute that specifically requires Mr. Walker to identify himself, and courts have determined that New Jersey's obstruction statute cannot be applied to individuals who refuse to identify themselves to police.
Why are you shooting me to think? Why are you...
Is that illegal?
Why are you flipping the bird? Yes, it is. When you are cursing in public, you are causing a public disturbance. You're being a nuisance to the public.
The second officer asserts that the boy must identify himself. The officer goes on to explain that it is forbidden to curse in public because you're causing a public disturbance and being a nuisance to the public. In what way? When he was driving by. It's called calls from a public disturbance, and it doesn't mean you've been charged with anything. You're being detained at that point.
What reason does he need to detain me?
He thought maybe he thought you were signaling him down. Were you signaling to him?
No,
Listen, I was.
no, you knew very well that I wasn't signaling him, right? I wasn't signaling him.
You bring attention to yourself.
That's not signaling.
You're acting strange. I'm making sure you're okay.
Dude, that's so funny. Like, you're not here for my safety. You're not trying to protect
How
me.
do you know?
You're walking on the
maybe-
side of the road and you're cursing and you're flipping the bird.
The boy asks again for what reason he's being detained, and they all start arguing.
Do you know him? Do you know him?
It's not your business. I
It is
plead
my
the fifth.
business.
I plead the fifth then.
Yeah, well,
What's the
it's your
First
public
Amendment for?
Okay. The First Amendment is for your freedom of speech. Okay.
Okay.
What does that have to do with
Was I
using
making a call
gestures?
to action?
Do
Am I
you-
calling for an action to be done against you?
Do
No.
you understand
You're
that
bringing
it is?
attention to
Listen,
yourself to get
listen,
invested.
listen.
That's not legal.
It's.
The boy asks for his First Amendment, and the officer explains it.
So I
Well,
don't legally need to hold anything.
Well, I want to know from your perspective.
I
What was I
pulled up
doing?
onto the scene, so you tell me what you were
To
doing.
bring your attention to
I
yourself.
plead the fifth. You idiot. How long have you been a cop? 6?
Longer than you.
Listen,
Longer than you, I'm not a cop.
I don't understand what the point of this is.
The boy asks for the perspective of another cop.
Now what
He
happens?
just admitted that
Now
he
what
was going
happens
to
is when
arrest
he
me.
gives you a lawful order to stop, and you do
It
not
wasn't
stop.
a lawful order, though.
And you do not
It
stop.
legally was not a
and
lawful
you
order.
do not stop, then that becomes a criminal offense, and then yes, you can be put under
But
arrest.
it's not a lawful order. Then I take it to court, and then he'd get sued, and I get
Maybe.
punitive damages. I'd be rich. Is that what you want?
That
Oh,
may,
you don't know the
that
law,
may be
buddy.
what happens
You don't know
if
the
you
law.
think that that's gonna happen.
The boy laughs at what the officer says and then says he just admitted he gives you a lawful order to stop and you don't do it. It wasn't all Florida, though, and you do it legally. That becomes a criminal offense, and then yes, you can be put under, but it's not a lawful order. Then I take it to court, and then he gets sued, and I get millions in damages. I'd be rich, is what you wanted. The officer stated that the Fourth Amendment was not violated in this case since no seizure happened. Mr. Walker, the boy, was not arrested. However, as the Supreme Court explained in the infamous 1968 decision of Terry v. Ohio, the Fourth Amendment guarantees the right of the people to be safe in their persons, homes, papers, or belongings against unreasonable searches and seizures. However, it is clear that Mr. Walker was captured when Corporal Pritch, the officer, made physical contact with him in order to prevent him from fleeing. However, it is also quite likely that a judge would determine that Mr. Walker was detained for Fourth Amendment purposes when Corporal Pritch first ordered him to stop and he accepted.
That may be what's going to happen. It may not be what happens. Okay.
Okay, I
What
understand.
may happen is,
All right,
is
so what
you
are we
may get a
wasting time
normal
for?
jury.
Am I free
and
to go?
What
Am I
may
free to
happen
go?
is you may get
Am I
a
free to
normal
go?
jury. No, because at this point
For what
you
reason?
were detained. Okay, because he told you to stop
Okay.
and you didn't stop.
Okay.
So therefore, you need to identify yourself as a part of the investigation. So what is your name?
Okay, I'm gonna need all of your badge numbers.
I will give you everything written down on a card. What is your
I
name?
could give you.
If you have an
Am
ID,
I?
that's perfect.
Am I? Okay, I'll take it to court
If you have
because
an
this
ID,
is
that's
still
perfect.
this is still a detainment.
Are you a juvenile?
This is an illegal detainment.
Are
so
you
I
a
can
juvenile?
still. I'm not going to answer that.
The teenager asks if he is free to leave, but the officer says no because he is detained. He must identify himself as a participant in the investigation. The boy becomes more aware of his surroundings and informs them that he intends to take off all the badge numbers. The officer responds that everything will be written down on a card, but the boy believes it is still entertaining.
Okay?
Well, I'm going to
And
take
you
a
can do
lawsuit.
that.
So who would I press criminal charges against?
For what?
You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to
police
call. You're gonna have to call and
For
figure
what?
that out with a lawyer. You would have
Yeah.
to file a complaint with the courts.
Got it.
Okay, and then you can go from there if you want to see if you can press charges and whatnot if you're
Perfect.
violating your rights.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Stay
All
out
right,
of the
am I free
roadway.
to go?
Don't give us fingers.
Shut the f- up.
Stay out of the roadway. Stop causing a public alarm.
Dude, shut the f- up. Am I free
Stop
to go?
cursing, okay?
Well, I'm gonna
And
take
you
a
can do
lawsuit.
that.
So who would I press criminal charges against?
For what? You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to
police
call. You're gonna have to call and figure that out with a lawyer.
The boy asked the lawyer to prove them wrong legally about how he was making a disturbance. The officer tells him that for further investigation, he'll have to call and talk to a lawyer about that. If your rights have been violated, you have to make a complaint with the courts. From there, you can decide if you want to press charges or do other things.
Am I
You're free to go.
Stop cursing. Go.
You're free to.
When the officers let him go free, Mr. Walker left from there without causing any further incident. After the incident, less information was known, so we don't know what they did as per the investigation.